Hey, Nation, Harry here in the dog days of summer. You may be aware I've gone down a rabbit hole this summer to do a multi-part series on third-party maintenance. And as part of that, I've learned a lot. Then I heard from Brad Hebert, who is in the business of facilitating assessments. And there's not necessarily crossover to the summer series. However, on that side of the aisle, there is a motion to do a risk assessment when you enter into such agreements. That's not really why we're here. But Brad, your outreach was really timely because I've been thinking about assessments. So tell me what you do over at Prevalent, and sir, what's the story?
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for having me on. I think, as you mentioned, one of the interesting things we're finding from a cybersecurity perspective is many organizations are finding that their weakest link sometimes isn't found within their own organization, but it's found within their supply chains, within their vendors. Yeah. And one of the hardest things to do, of course, is to get visibility of what that hygiene looks like, right, from a vendor perspective, right? So that's either from a compliance perspective, from a security perspective, from an operational perspective, and so on. And so we help automate that process directly for companies, and we also facilitate having a technology for MSPs to do that on behalf of their client base as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you're off, and again, I'm loosely using the term assessment. And by the way, it's a really popular term in my audience. It's good work. It's good work for the MSP to go perform at the SMB. So you're talking about more on the security side, the data hygiene, that kind of thing. Am I tracking with you?
Yeah, so there's two different types. One are the point in time assessments that you want to do, and a lot of times these would be, think about them like survey based, where you're going to go into an environment, you're going to sit down with the vendor or over the phone with the vendor, or even just send it out with the vendor. They're going to go through a series of questions, answering specific questions about different control domains. Could be driven by a security framework, it could be driven by different compliance mandates and so on. And they're going to answer questions on, do you have these types of technologies implemented, MFA, for example. They may also have questions around their policy and procedures around audit and so forth. And the outcome of that is going to be, once they answer all those questions, is going to be a report that says, here's how you comply with this particular framework or a compliance mandate. And here's where you have weakness. Here's where you have risks, and here's some recommendations on how you can take care of those risks. And again, it could be buying buying technology, implementing technology, buying some services, implementing better documentation, those sorts of things. So that's one side of sort of point in time assessments. Okay. Organizations need those now, and a lot of vendors get asked before they get contracted to demonstrate that they're not going to put their new potential client at risk. Yeah. The other type of assessment is more automated, which is looking at a company from the outside, so almost like a hacker, if you will. What does that security hygiene and compliance hygiene look like from an outsider? So what's their perimeter website look like? What's the vulnerabilities look like? What's it look like on the deep web, dark web? Do they have passwords for sale? So then we kind of come up with a score. So this is what they look like from an inside out perspective for what they're telling us. This is what they look like from an outside in, what we're seeing out there. We put those things together, and we can go back to a company and say, look, this is how we see your overall risk profile. And then again, they can do something about that risk profile, working with an MSP or a consulting firm, or they can accept that risk.
Yeah. Final question. It sounds like, and again, I'm drawing on my community and what I know to be true, and one of our analysts is a compliance guy, HIPAA and beyond. It sounds like some of the output you generate would be interesting to people who have compliance issues as well, in addition to security. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. A lot of organizations, the reason they start doing this vendor risk, sort of assessment stuff is because of an audit finding, a lot of cases, right? So sometimes it's because they want to onboard new vendors and they want to make sure that vendor is not going to put them at risk. Sometimes it's, after the fact, through an audit finding, that you don't have visibility on the risk that this vendor is posing to the organization. But in either case, they want to do these vendor assessments. And so when we do these vendor assessments, we don't just say, hey, you're not using MFA, or you're not doing the appropriate audit reviews. But we tie those back out of the box back to multiple controls objectives as multiple mandates. So out of the box, you would get a set of risks that we find, and we'll show you why those risks are important to your business and how they tie back to those compliance mandates. So that's really out of the box.
Man, my head's spinning. Okay. I better call it good. But folks, I put a link down in the blog below for you to go learn more about Prevalent, what Brad does. Brad, hey, thanks for helping me fill some knowledge gaps as I'm just, kind of horsing around this summer on some new topics and assessment. It got my attention. So, hey, keep it safe out there. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, thank you very much.